Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body Book Club. I am joined today by my lovely sister Ellie to chat about a wonderful book that we have both read recently.
Coincidentally.
Complete coincidence, but I called Ellie up a couple of weeks ago and was like, I'm reading this brilliant book. And she happened to be reading the same one. And it is called Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. And it is the first book by Gail Honeyman. And I could not recommend it more highly.
I'd seen everybody reading it on the tube and train, so I knew it was going to be good. But
but it's really gripping.
Special.
It's special. It's about a woman called Eleanor, and it covers various different things, but it's essentially a story of loneliness, friendship, kindness, and you kind of explore just a very small few moments in her life where she experiences these big shifts. And I want to be really careful not to give too much away because it is just such a fantastic story. But in the back of the book there are some reading group questions, so I thought that in the video today we could have a little chat about some of those. And I haven't actually seen the questions yet, so gonna have to try and choose ones that don't give too much away, but we'll start with the first one, which says, how do you think you would have treated Eleanor if she had been your work colleague, and what do you think the world is like for those who are often seen as different or difficult? I think it's probably worth saying that when we first chatted about it, I was really stuck into the book, and Ellie was struggling a little bit, weren't you?
I think I was a couple of chapters behind, and I'd actually had a conversation with another friend of mine, and who was reading the same book, and we were both saying, "Oh, her character's just a little bit annoying, I guess." She's just analysing things, and I was sort of at that kind of pivotal point where I was going to put the book down, but decided to stick with it because you had mentioned that it was a story of loneliness. And I hadn't realised at that point, and I think then I actually took a step back, sort of judged myself for being judgmental on her character, because I hadn't realised that this was the direction of the book or the sort of purpose behind the book, and picked it back up. And then I think one chapter later I was so gripped and I was in. But absolutely, this loneliness is a massive part of the book, and a big part of that is how she interacts with people in her office where she's been working for years. And your question remind me
was, how do you think she would have been treated in an office environment? So I spent a very limited amount of time working in an office, but I often see the way that people interact in groups, and I think a big concern, and I guess where the question comes from, is the way that we approach people that we might see as different from ourselves. I think some environments are really wonderful and supportive and inclusive, but as human beings, I think we, sort of big we, have a tendency to shy away from difference.
Well, I've worked in a couple of offices, and maybe I have been lucky in where I've worked, in that there's different types of people with different types of interests in different teams. So you might have the more creative type versus people who are sort of more into the numbers, and then you've got the marketing team who are more strategic. And I've actually always experienced everyone being quite inclusive, and the office being quite an inclusive space. Of course, there's always a tendency to meet people who you're more like and spend more time with them. But so to think, I'd like to think, and I'm sure everyone, if you were to ask 100 people how you would treat somebody, I'm sure everyone would say, oh, of course, I do my best to include everyone. Whether in reality that happens, well, probably doesn't. So it's recognising that people are different, but also trying to realising it's sort of your responsibility to get to know that person. You can't expect you don't want everyone to be the same person and a mould of each other.
And I have friends who I know, if they bring a different type of packed lunch to everybody else, or they really are singled out for their differences in their office environment. And like you said, it's that may be the culture in certain environments, but actually we have an opportunity individually to disperse that culture and actually make an effort with the people that are perhaps the kind of easy targets. So what is this is a good one. There's a quote from the book that says, that's the thing. It's best just to take care of yourself. Is there truth in that?
Yes, absolutely. I think people tend to think so much or take care so much of those around them that they do forget to take care of themselves. I do think that's really, really important. But at the same time, I do think we have a responsibility to notice if there are more vulnerable people in our society and ensure that they're okay. Although there's an interesting part in the book, without giving too much away, Eleanor is sort of innately quite a selfish person. She has her routine and she does what she has to do, and there is no space really to involve other people or to kind of, it's just her life is sort of everything that she needs to get done. And
which I think comes from sort of this what she's needed to survive, like a survival technique up to sort of this point in which we're meeting her in the book.
Yeah, well, there is this beautiful unravelling at the same time as her sort of developing in terms of her social interactions. There's also this underlying sort of tragedy that comes through. So you do learn a lot more about why she is the way that she is. But what I was going to say is there is this really interesting moment where she meets another vulnerable member of society, an old man who may have had a fall. And she doesn't feel like she's with her new friend, and she doesn't feel like it's her responsibility to help this guy for a moment or two. And it is actually quite interesting seeing that when we're reading about her, we can consider her as vulnerable and that she needs taking care of maybe. But then she is very self-sufficient, and she then doesn't sort of feel that she needs to take care of other people.
Yeah.
It just makes you think about these.
Yeah, and the way that people just perceive what their function and their interaction is in the world, which I guess hits quite nicely to this question, which says, what's the difference between loneliness and being alone, and which of these apply to Eleanor? And actually it's something that I've really explored personally in the last couple of years, because I used to be so resistant to spending time by myself, and it was something that I just never ever enjoyed. I didn't know how to spend time by myself, and the minute I was by myself, I told myself that I was lonely and that I needed to find company. And actually what I've developed over the last couple of years is this real desire to choose time alone.
Bliss.
And and not see that as being lonely, but actually see it as a choice of investing in myself and nurturing my relationship to myself, my my personal development and various different things. And a huge part of that comes from my yoga practice. And I think that at the beginning, I guess, we're painted this picture of her being lonely, but I don't think she sees herself as being lonely. I think that's kind of our perception of what her life must be like as being lonely, whereas actually she's just alone and quite happy. Supposedly she sees herself as very happy to be alone.
Well, I think part of that is a truth that she's been telling herself, it's in the title of the book. It's something that she tells herself. She doesn't need anyone, she's fine on her own. But I think as it unravels, maybe she realizes that she does, and it's those small interactions with people that she subsequently meets that actually have a massive impact on her. And that's when you sort of start to realize, she starts to realize, I think, that she's not okay, and she starts to experience sort of her emotions
how
of
different
loneliness.
things can be, and what the opportunities are for her to explore a life beyond what she knows. There's an interview with the author at the back of the book. I feel like I don't want to give any of the story away because it's just such a brilliant read, and I knew nothing about it when I was reading it, so I kind of want to resist any spoilers. But there is an interview with the author at the back, and the final question asks, what do you want readers to take from Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. And she says, in telling Eleanor's story, I wanted to focus in particular on the importance of kindness, on how tiny acts can be completely transformative for the right recipient at the right time. That said, each reader and each reading experience is different, and I'm happy to leave it to readers to decide what, if anything, to take from it. For me, that's part of the pleasure of being fortunate enough to have people read your work. And I just think that's really beautiful. I think everything she says is really what I do take from the book. So that's totally feeds my kind of, you know, that you have no idea how the smallest...
It's those tiny acts, isn't it?
Yeah, the smallest interaction or thought or commitment to somebody else can have such an explosive, positive impact on their life.
Or that can work both ways also. You know, you might say something that, you know, in another day or another moment may not offend someone at all, but you just, that recognising or having that awareness of what somebody's going through, whether that be positive or negative, can have a massive impact, and they may react differently on different days.
And the awareness that actually you might just not know, and we don't need to know about someone's history to determine the way in which we approach our interactions with them, and actually just giving people the space to be to receive things in the way that is right for them in that time, and just being, the more mindful and self-aware we are, the more, I guess, open we can be to understanding how our interactions might impact somebody else. It really is the most wonderful book. I loved every single moment of it. I'm the slowest reader and dyslexic, and just never ever get my way through a book in a short space of time, but this took me a number of days, and I know many people who have got through it even faster than that. So I couldn't recommend it more highly. If you haven't picked up a copy, then add it to your list, put it at the top.
And then pass it on. So someone's passed it on to me, and I'm passing it on to another friend. So let's recycle the books as well, which is lovely, and share the message as well.
Yeah, when the message is that good, that needs sharing. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll see you soon.
That's all right, wasn't it?